Hey everyone, and welcome to the Shipping Excellent podcast. I'm Andrew Duncan, and I have with me here today a good friend, former coworker, and fellow entrepreneur, Assaf Weinberg.
Thanks for having me on, Duncan.
Yeah, thanks for coming. So on this show, we like to talk about real world, practical, and tactical tips and tools on how to build great technology and software products. And AI is big in the world today, and you've built AI products. I know for your own business, you've built some for other businesses, and I'd love to talk a little bit about what some of the products that you've built, some of the problems you've overcome, and any tips that you can give anyone else who's trying to build AI products today.
Yeah, definitely. That's a huge topic. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what AI can do, especially with the non-technical crowd out there. So I'm super excited about AI, super excited about what it can do, what kind of problems it could solve. And I think some of the products that we're seeing out there today are just the beginnings of what could actually be made. Um, you have this thing that could effectively read, reason, and write in the cloud for fractions of a penny, right? So like, what can you do with this thing? Obviously, a whole lot. And what we're seeing today is, some of the beginnings of, well, if I have this thing, maybe I can make it do customer service. Maybe I could create a chatbot. Maybe I could have it read and summarize my emails, personal assistant type of stuff. It's effectively if you have a human being, something that's like a human being that could do human-like tasks, we started giving it some of these low value tasks to do. But I think there's so much more upside to what it could do, and people really realize how they can build it into literally every product that you make.
I agree. I have been thinking about ways that different businesses can leverage AI, both for products, external, client-facing products, to enhance their customer experience and value that they provide to their clients, but also how they can leverage it to increase operational efficiency. I think there are a ton of use cases for that too, because like you said, it quote unquote thinks, but really it does have the ability to reason, right? And so tell me a little bit about how you've seen that used.
Yeah, so um, the first AI product I created was the same as everybody else, as a chatbot. And the real key to making a chatbot work well, making a customer, it was a teaching assistant for Future RN. So Future RN is a company I run with my wife that teaches nurses how to get into nursing school, specifically how to pass the TEAS exam, which is an entrance exam for nursing school. And there's a course with video, and there's quizzes and flashcards and all sorts of the traditional educational stuff that you'd expect. But we also wanted to build an AI teaching assistant into the whole experience. And making an AI talk or just take text in and produce an answer, that's just, you just get that out of the box, right? That's you get that for free from OpenAI, from everybody else. That's just table stakes. So where do you add value? How can you, as a programmer or as a business owner, add value to what you get for free? Because if you get it for free, then everybody else has it too. So there's no value add. You can't charge any money for what is given away for free. So where's the value add? And in the age of AI, I think that the value add for every company becomes your proprietary data, your proprietary process, because you take your data and your process and you feed it to a commodity thinking machine that you're able to buy off the cloud, and what you get is your value added output. That's what most companies, most information companies, that's what they are, right? They take data input, they apply the proprietary data, proprietary process, and their own employees and computing systems that actually implement that process, and they output value added data. Basically, the output data is more valuable than the input data. That's what effectively most of these companies are. It used to be that you had to spend a ton of money on people in order to implement your processes. Well, now you could buy that execution capacity off the cloud for pennies or for less than pennies. But now everybody has that. It used to be like, oh, what are differentiators? It's our people, it's our ability to work and execute. Well, now everybody has that for free off the cloud. So effectively, what is your company now? Well, your company is now organizing your proprietary data that nobody else has, and your process, your way of doing things, and writing it down, right? If you can do those two things, you can then give that to an AI to execute. And your company, that's how your company operates now. You spent a lot of time training people and creating the guardrails for people to execute your proprietary process using your proprietary tools, using your proprietary data. With AI now, you don't have to do that anymore. So It's very similar, except now the differentiator, being the data and the process, becomes even more important than ever before. So as a company, as a business owner, I think it's really important to sit back. If you want to know how can I use AI, or what's AI going to mean for my business in the future, the first thing you should ask yourself is, what data do I have that nobody else has? What process or knowledge or ways of doing things do I have that nobody else has? Because that becomes your differentiator.
So let me ask you about this. You've built AI products now, I guess many at this point. What are some of the problems that you've encountered when building AI processes, business processes and applications, and how do you navigate those?
Yeah, definitely. Great question. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what AI can do, and trying to build some of these products, you go down certain paths and you find its limitations, and you realize this is where I have to pull back, and you realize that it's not great at everything. I think the initial inclination is to take every problem, just throw it at AI, and expect it to generate and output the solution. But that's not how we use humans. So think about AI as human. And there's things that humans are good at, and there's things humans make mistakes at, and there's things humans are inefficient at. Just because AI is more efficient than humans doesn't mean that it doesn't fall into it doesn't have the same shortcomings. So for example, in the current company, the current application I'm working on is called Set Sail, where it's an HVAC sales application. And one of the challenges that you have to do there is you have to be able to take a PDF that's full of really detailed data and bring that into your database. And when I first tried to do this, well, the obvious thing is I'll just feed the whole thing into AI, and I'll just ask AI to take this unstructured data and to write out structured data and feed it in my database. This is
And
just
that's like the chatbot, right?
all right. It's RAG. It's RAG. It's You can just put it all the context and get all the data out. But there's a couple of problems with that. One thing is that if AI has to read and write a lot of data, it's going to make mistakes on a pretty regular basis. So even if it's only 1% of the time, 1% times a million is unacceptable. Two, it's going to be very inefficient. So asking AI to do that is the same thing that would you ask a human being, would you ask an employee to take a sheet of a PDF with a bunch of really detailed data with model numbers that are 12 characters long with all this garbled stuff and transcribe it into your structured data? You could, but what are the problems? It's going to be slow and they're going to make mistakes. Well, AI is faster and more efficient and less mistake prone actually than humans, but it's still in the same category. So if you ask AI to do that, you get the same issues. It costs too much, it was too slow, and it was too error prone. So I think where you find the sweet spot is you make AI do what AI is good at, and you still have to use computers. When I say computers, I mean traditional computing, which does certain things very, very well, like taking some PDF and converting it to CSVs using OCR and pulling that data, or writing stuff to the database, or doing field mapping. People still use computers because computers are useful. AI should use computers too when you implement processes.
That's interesting. There's what's big in the AI world now is agents, right? Agentic workflows, which is, to simplify, is basically several different AI processes working together to achieve some outcome. And some of that embedded into those AI agents are, to your point, traditional computing solutions, right? Just standard software development of writing code. And
There's a lot of processes that you already know how to do. There's no point in having an AI do those things. Like, it's much faster, cheaper, and more reliable to have a computer be given specific instructions, just execute those things. So don't make AI do a computer's job. Make AI do a human's job.
one of the things that I was thinking about the use of, or practical application of AI, a way to think about it is AI is an ingredient in the recipe that your business produces to provide value to your clients, right? It's not the assumption, like you said, is that AI can solve all the problems, and it can't, because it is error prone to some degree. It's a non-deterministic system, which means you're going to get different results if you run the same process, and you're not very clear on the instruction set.
I think that's an important distinction to make, right? It's a strange time where we're trying to get used to the idea. Like, when you say computers do something, that used to mean a very specific thing because the computers had very specific limitations. Like, you know, you had no computers, right? You imagine a world of no computers. Well, humans have to, do everything themselves, right? And as a business owner in that world, you would write down your process and you would teach that process to humans and to your employees, and they would do that work. And then you have to monitor and make sure they keep on doing what you ask them to do. Then computers came around, and the advent of software and software programs. What these things allow us to do is to write down how we do things one time and then have this thing that's much faster and more reliable than a human execute that process over and over again. So we got a lot of efficiencies by writing down the process in a completely 100% unambiguous fashion and have a computer just do that really, really fast. So we gain a lot of efficiency that way. But the inherent limitation there is that if there's something ambiguous, well, the computer can't deal with it. You have that's why software is so expensive to make. That's why software is so expensive to maintain. That's why you can only solve certain problems with traditional software because it doesn't have the ability to make judgment calls. If there's a decision to be made, you have to in advance know about all the possible inputs and all the possible outputs and write it all in a logical structure so it runs the same through every single time, and then you have to maintain and update that when the world changes. That's why software is so expensive.
I've always said that the most expensive piece of building software is the maintenance as the business grows and changes, because then you have to go back and change it time and time.
Right. Software is nothing more than codified business process. It's just business process written down to a degree of zero ambiguity.
Going back to AI being an ingredient in a business, again, still this idea of codified business processes. AI is not the end all be all solution to business problems. It is a piece, it is a tool that you embed in existing business processes where the limitations of traditional software engineering couldn't solve the problem. AI now can solve. And so the example that you gave on uploading PDFs and pulling what is some semi-structured or unstructured data out of a PDF. So think like a company, a mid-market company that is processing, thousands of invoices, or our insurance company that's processing thousands of claim documents, for example. And that's a traditionally human-driven process. You've got to copy and paste into your operational software, your ERP platform. That's a process now that you can automate. I always say with 80%, I would say 80% completeness with AI.
Well, you write applications with AI. So to finish that thought on the codified business process, software is also traditional software. Also, just allows you to automate some of these processes. If you knew exactly what the PDF was, if you knew exactly what the structure of the input data was, and you know exactly a set of concrete steps of how you create the output, then you can write a traditional software program that will do that reliably every time. You don't need AI to do that. Where AI, this new ingredient, this new tiny little ingredient whose superpower is dealing with ambiguity, could be sprinkled throughout your process. Software was an ingredient that was sprinkled throughout your business process in between human processes to automate and sort of grease the skids on certain processes, right? AI is now another one of these tools that can be embedded in a software process or in a human process to make things more efficient. So back to the example of the PDF, if we know exactly what the input format is, what the output format is, we could just write a traditional program and do it, and we don't have to mess with AI, and it's fast and cheap and easy. But the problem comes in when things are not always the same. So in my case, the price book that's being uploaded by the customer could take on a bunch of different formats. And my goal is I have some bunch of data that I know the approximate data that's going to be in here. I don't know what column headers, what they're going to be labeled exactly. I don't know exactly how they're going to be grouped and organized. I just know approximately what this information should contain. On the other end, I have my database, which has structured data, has specific columns, specific data types. I know exactly what that target schema is. So I don't need AI to read everything from the source and write it into the target. What I need AI to do is try to figure out, how does the source map to the target? So I give it this format and this format, and I say, basically, how would you map these fields together? Give me a field mapping. And that field mapping could be really dynamic. And let's say on this side, they call it size. And here I have it tons. Or here they might call it ton, or they might call it tons. I don't know. But you know who does know? a reasonable AI that can make a judgment call about what field this source maps to what field and destination. So all I ask AI to do is, hey, look at this data. Here's the fields. Look at this data. Here's the fields and descriptions. Can you create a data mapping for me and just output the data map, which is a tiny little piece of output that takes maybe 10, 15 seconds max. And then I will take that data mapping and feed it to the traditional software program to do the data conversion. I'm basically having AI write custom code on the fly as part of an API call.
That is awesome. That is really interesting. There's another good buddy of mine who is doing something similar, where he is using it to it's a very similar exercise, but he is using AI to map to custom API endpoints. And so what he's doing is he's calling an endpoint, or he's generating code to call the endpoint. He gets a set of errors back, again, a data mapping. He feeds the errors into the AI and says, hey, update the code that you wrote to resolve these errors. And then he's feeding that back into the AI. And so there's this iterative process. And all this is running, again, as an automated software process and a combination of large language models and traditional software engineering code, where he can build rapid integrations without having to have a person write code.
No, absolutely. That's the thing. You now have a programmer in your program.
Your program running in real time, at runtime.
Exactly. One of the base assumptions of software development was that computers couldn't deal with ambiguity, so you had to write all your own code. Well, now you could write the code on the fly, and you could layer traditional software and AI and humans in multiple layers together to solve a problem. Like the example you gave, I've done similar things with JSON parsing. Like I asked AI, hey, give me a JSON object that maps that represents this data. Then I have a traditional software program try to parse that data and check it. If it doesn't parse, if it throws an error, I'll go back to AI and say, hey, this is what I asked you to do. This is what you gave me. This is the error I got when I tried to parse it. Can you fix that? Can you give another shot? They can give another shot. It comes back with new data. I could try to run through the same process. You could keep on doing that, or you could run through a different process. You give it the whole history. Like you can now program multi-step processes that involve humans, AI, and traditional software, each doing what they do best.
I was working with another business owner yesterday on just learning a little bit about ChatGPT, and we were specifically talking about how he can leverage ChatGPT to learn his business and his brand voice, his tone of voice, target audience, and use it to generate content for him. He has an idea, some bullet points about a piece of content that he wants to write. And instead of spending, 30 minutes or an hour to write this content, he can now take those bullet points. He can feed into AI previous pieces of content that he's written. He can talk about what his business does. ChatGPT can go and read your website, your business website, and kind of understand what, the context of what your business provides to the market. And then feed in his bullet points and says, hey, based on everything you know about my business and previous content, generate me a LinkedIn post with 300 words or less based on these bullet points. And it blew him away. And I think a ton of businesses, especially a ton of marketers, are using it for this. And it basically takes your ideas that you give it, right, from your bullet points, and knowing your brand tone and voice can produce the content that you can, post out to the world and create a lot of value for people who are trying to learn about what your business does and what you provide to the market. And it blew him away, and I was excited. It was kind of see as like the light bulb go off. He's like, oh, I can do all of these things with it now. It's quite powerful, just outside of I would say the really complex business process, embedding it inside of your business process. Outside of that, you can use it for content generation too, and marketing. And I think a big one is brainstorming. A lot of people use it to brainstorm when they're trying to solve a problem.
Everything we've talked about so far has been like how to use AI in software development to create custom business software. But I think obviously there's a lot of tools out there like ChatGPT and Claude that let you essentially have a thought partner with you. Generating content with AI, brainstorming, I think is useful. I think the whole world of content is going to be turned upside down. I'm really curious to see how, like, if you can write all that content using AI, why does somebody need to read your content? Why don't they just ask AI? So that's where, what is the value add? We look at through that lens of what proprietary data and process do I have that I could add on top of ChatGPT to produce this content that's better than someone else could get just by using ChatGPT. It's always important to understand what is your value add, because if you don't add that in there, the value of what you're producing is zero.
Agreed, 100%. I appreciate you coming on to talk about this. I'm really passionate about AI. Assaf and I have partnered on a couple of projects ourselves. We enjoy just nerding out on the technology and what it's capable of, and we're constantly pushing the limits. So thanks for coming, Assaf, and thanks everyone for who's listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me, Duncan.